Okay, we are recording. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Good to
So,
see you.
yeah, good to see you. I did watch your video on Jinen, and
Yeah, Jinen Honi. Yeah, I should have. I was saying Jinin, but I meant Jinin Honi. Really, the
right,
whole time.
yeah,
So,
and
you mean
my
episode 10 of episode 10 of Reflecting Deep, the one I just did. I'm saying that because this video probably won't get posted till later, so people know what we're talking about. Anyway, yeah. Sorry.
um, and my initial reaction was, wow,
Yeah.
just wow.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I felt like it's becoming true and real for almost maybe like you know a long time. We talk about the Dharma, we discuss it, we look at the letter,
Concepts.
the concepts, yeah, the words, but like the four refuges states, it's not the words, it's the meaning. It's in the meaning is when it's not just
Yeah.
words on a page that's from hundreds of years ago, but it actually
Yeah.
becomes, it awakens in our awareness and becomes real and true and real. Shinjitsu, as they say in Japanese. And I mean, true and real, Amida is true and real. And so what I felt from watching your video was, wow, I could tell that this is like a true and real experience that you're having of this, reading the larger sutra, immersing in the Dharma of that sutra. And as I was watching your video, I kept just saying, yes, yes, yes.
Excellent.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
really,
Thank you. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I'm glad it had that. You know, impact. Sometimes when I just went right off the cuff. It was completely. There was no. I didn't really think about it or rehearse that much. I just said I'm going to do a video
mhm,
about this, and and that's usually. I don't really. I mean, sometimes I kind of have an idea, but that was just. I'm going to just try to describe what's been
yeah.
happening, um, as best I
Well,
can within the
I think
context
that's
of the teachings.
yeah, the best way to do it, because it's like the real raw, unfiltered impact of the
Yeah.
Dharma we're experiencing. So I think it's perfect. And I mean, I think what I want to really affirm, this video, this sort of realization that you had through reading, through your reading of those sutras, because
Yeah.
um, I was actually inspired by it. Like it was like hearing a Dharma talk, It's like,
Oh wow. Oh great. That's
I actually had like a sort of, um, it got my mind working. It really
wow.
inspired me, on a
Wow.
spiritual plane. So, um,
That
good
is
stuff.
very
Yeah,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
want to. So what I wanted to say is, to affirm this experience or this realization, and then say, this is something that you can, because it is true and real. It's, as we encounter whenever we encounter the Dharma, that's true and real. The Nimbutsu, as Shinran says, the Nimbutsu alone is true and real. Um, and so, this is something that you can, going forward, like you can sort of take with you as something to return to, and then when maybe hit the wall again, or have
It's
further
yeah.
frustration and so on. This is something, because it is real. You can sort of go back to it and sort of center and take a deep breath and say the Nimbutsu, and let your, as Shinran says, let your mind flow into that working that you've now kind of through reading the larger sutra, which is amazing, by the way. I mean, it's so cool that you had this realization through reading the sutra
Yeah.
itself. That's just
Yeah, yeah, and
really,
that's just the first sutra. I haven't even gotten out of the first sutra yet. I'm still,
yeah,
you know, that was just the larger sutra. That was just the first, you know, you know, starting point, and that's kind of already happened in so
yeah,
many things. Actually, another aspect of this has been, um, the parts I kept focusing on about how it describes in such detail samsaric existence for us ordinary beings, and you know
yes,
and those things occur to you if you're a Buddhist. You think about, this is samsara. Yep, here we are. Wherever you go, there you are. Like you just naturally kind of reflect on it, and you're aware of some things. But I think a big part of this hitting the wall
mm,
is the whole, ego being exposed by the light of Amida. It's
yeah,
and seeing those things in yourself, and seeing, um seeing seeing it for what it is. And I think part of it is in some unconscious way, this
mm,
that ego self, that provisional self, is really fighting against this, like a Mara, you know
yeah,
all
no,
the all the internal Maras are just, no, F this. Do you know what I mean? Let me give something to,
I
you know,
love myself
to throw a
creating.
wrench into this. Let give him this. Let's get something to screw with this whole program, because do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's fighting back in some you know what I mean?
yes, the builder of this house will not go quietly.
Into that good night. No, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely not.
yeah.
And so
Um,
it throws, all these things that, uh, I'm not dismissing my doubts and my, questions and my
mhm.
barriers. Very real. Well, in the sense that anything in samsara is real, but the the but at least some of the reasons or things motivating them are this ego builder of the house fighting for its survival, fighting to,
Yeah,
you know what I mean, is some of what's behind that, or all, maybe all of it could be that, but a lot of, and I think that's why there's this struggle, and this is part big. I think that's a big part of hitting the wall. I think that's what Inagaki Sensei talks about too,
mhm.
and it just makes sense when you are exposed, when something's exposed,
Mm,
it fights, something corrupt. You know what I
yeah,
mean? If a corrupt person, and when I say a corrupt person, I mean, I'm talking about this spiritually. I'm spiritually speaking,
right.
but using an example of a metaphor of, like, a a corrupt person in government, or in
Yeah,
a business, or somewhere in society that's exposed. it they fight they they fight and connive and do whatever they can to bring whatever forces to bear to prevent, you know what I mean, and so that they can survive and somehow gets
yeah.
away with it, gets out of it, and when it comes to us spiritually, that's how I think we behave when the lights of Amida is shining on us in a spiritual sense. That's how we I'm using that as a metaphor. The corruption thing is. I'm not saying I'm a corrupt politician or a corrupt. You know what I mean. I'm just saying that's the metaphor here. That it's fighting for its.
I like, it's like a picture in a courtroom. You're yourself, your ego self is in the dark and saying, I will be perfectly happy and content in this world that my ego has built for me, and I will be perfectly fine, and I don't need enlightenment, and I don't need, any of
Yeah.
this. And then the Buddha is like, objection. I object, Your Honor.
Exactly. Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Here is the evidence of your ailment. Here's the
Yeah.
evidence of your.
But
Anyway.
but yeah, like you said, it's all there in the larger sutra. And this is one of the things
Yes.
that I was so amazed at when I first read the larger sutra, and it was, of course, the late Reverend Inagaki Sensei's translation, was that 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 real tear down of the samsaric experience by Shakyamuni Buddha in the second half, the second fascically of the sutra, where he goes through the 5, evils of the world. And it was just so like, wow, this is a description of, life in samsara that is by someone who clearly knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's yeah, even that, just even that, shows you that. Just, how could other than how than someone that is a awakened mind be able to describe it so exactingly, so perfectly, so comprehensively, to the point where just by reading it, there's nowhere to hide.
Exactly.
This,
It's not like
this,
anyone can set themselves outside of that description. I mean, if you don't find yourself somewhere in there,
yeah, yeah,
you must be a Buddha yourself.
exactly. A bodhisattva, a Buddha, yeah, exactly.
Nowhere to hide.
I was talking with one of my, I guess she'd be considered a niece, a second niece, I guess you'd not, because it's my brother-in-law's sister's daughter. So is
Okay.
that she considered, is she kind of a niece, or what is she? Is she like
Is it, what
a
did they say?
secondary niece or something? I don't know.
Well,
Anyway,
I don't know either. I'd have to look it up.
so I mean, she's not really his sister is not really my sister-in-law, but so maybe there's no relation there. But anyway, I sort of consider one of the nieces because she's part of their lives. You know what I mean? All their lives. So anyway, she's one of the very she's in the military, where in the country where she lives. She's in the military, very, in that, lifestyle. And do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And we were talking about, because when we were on the hikes, she and I were way ahead of everyone else. So we had a lot of time to talk. And we were just talking about different things, health and fitness. And also, then we were talking about, like, spiritual fitness. And do you know what I mean? And we were,
Yeah.
talking about as a Buddhist and things. And we were talking, he was talking about, people in her family that um, just won't face themselves at all, and like she's done a lot of work on herself. Do you know what I mean? And where she's actually planning to become like kind of a life coach kind of thing. And so we were talking about all of that. And and I was just saying, yeah, that's one thing with being a Buddhist, is once you really, to a certain degree, accept the teaching, there's nowhere to hide. There's nobody to blame. You
Yeah.
get that impulse to want to, but you want to blame, and you go, I can't blame it on I can't blame
Yeah.
it on them. I can't blame it on the past. I can't. Well, I can blame it on the past. My own past causes. I can blame it on, but that's it. I can. That's the only thing I can blame it on is my own past. Karmic causes and conditions. Um, and that's what I was saying to. There's nowhere to hide, and that's just Buddhism, let alone. And I was thinking to myself, that's just straight up Buddhism if you really accept the implications of the teachings.
Mm.
But and then if it goes further and you've got the ultimate Buddha shining the light on all of that in the 10 directions where there's
Yeah.
even more, so there's even less place to hide. I was thinking that to myself, but we weren't to the point in any kind of conversation where I could go to that next, do you know what I mean, phase of talking about Buddhism with her. But
Mm.
anyway, but in my mind I was thinking that. So that's the point, though. The point I was making was there is nowhere to hide as a Buddhist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Reverend Ray said, if he had to summarize all of Shakyamuni's teaching in a simple phrase, it would be take responsibility and move forward with your life.
Yeah.
So, taking
Exactly.
responsibility and realizing that you are never a victim.
Exactly. Yeah, that was part of the conversation. She's like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
no, there's no victimhood for you anymore, is there?"
there's
Like,
no, yeah,
no. She's like, "Yeah, same, same for me. There's no, you can't be a victim. Yeah, yeah.
and it's interesting to see that um, compatibility, so to speak, between psychology and Buddhism
Yes.
is
Oh, huge, huge. Yeah, yeah.
right at the same conclusion. I mean, of course, it's well known that Buddhism has a lot of um, applicability to psychology and vice versa. But
Mm,
that's
mm. I think there's as many of those there's as many of those kinds of discussions or symposiums or
mm,
what have you, workshops where they have discussion panels of the congruence of Buddhism and science. There's as many as those as there is with psychology and Buddhism.
yeah,
There's just equally as far as what I see kind of out there,
yeah.
in the
It's
past
interesting
anyway.
you brought that up because I considered when I eventually get ordained and received Tokudo, I was also something that sort of I was contemplating was going back to uh, college, maybe community college or something, and getting a degree in psychology, and then using my uh, experience as a Buddhist priest, and then the
Hmm.
psychology, combining the two, and doing
Oh,
like counseling or something
yeah.
like that.
Well, there
I
are
think,
there are people that are Buddhists,
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of counselors, um,
right,
and actually have that on there. If you're not a Buddhist, that's fine. Then I won't. But if you are a Buddhist, then yeah,
exactly.
that can
Well,
happen.
it brings a spiritual, and enables you to bring sort of a spiritual perspective to the
Yeah,
problems that people are
yeah,
having. So I think great. I mean, we're all about you know no judgment and
yeah.
come as you are in Shin Buddhism. So it's a
It
great,
is interesting. Yeah, I think basically anything that's comes from, all right, let's observe experience and reality
yeah,
first before we put something onto that, which is what Buddhism
yeah,
does. Um, kind of comes to similar conclusions, about certain things like science would, or I think psychology would, probably other social sciences to some degree would, you know what I mean? Um, um, I even think when I look, because in the past I've checked out the
uh-huh.
Unitarian Universalist Church, um, and they have lots of Buddhists are
Oh,
members of that organization actually, and a lot of what they do in their services is they literally have a bell. They ring. Do you know what I mean? They ring the. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? A lot of the stuff they do is Buddhist. and a lot of the principles that they sort of, you know what I mean, you can very easily interpret from a Buddhist kind of, you know, standpoint. And that's because they come at it from, okay, let's look at life, our experience, and observe things for and examine them for ourselves first before we come to a conclusion, you know.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? So it's, again, anything that comes from that, and even people, I would say, and there's a lot actually in the Universalist church, there's a lot of people that are atheists, agnostics, but they're like a hop, skip, and a jump from being Buddhists. Like, very, do you know what I mean? You know, like my niece's husband now, the one that just got married, is, I think, similar. Just things he'll say. Do you know what I mean? And he'll call himself kind of an agnostic, but spiritual. I call him I said, like, he wouldn't ever call himself kind of anything, but I'm like, you're how I see you is like a spiritual agnostic, you know, because he comes down. That's exactly, he actually says, you know, I come at it from, you know, what I experience and what's actually happening. Then do you know what I mean? And it's again, I just think he's a hop, skip, and a jump away from being a Buddhist. But anyways, we've gotten kind of off the where were we here talking about? So
I think we were discussing, well, the larger sutra, and then the finding you are never a victim, and then the psychology
that's it.
aspect.
Yeah,
the parallels between, or the interaction, you could say, between any kind of psychological therapy or counseling, and then also Buddhist principles. There's some interesting parallels.
And then this, no, exactly, definitely. And the solution, you know, when it goes through the 5 evils, the solution is always, well, if you, you know, diligently basically practice the way, you know, follow the precepts, you know, do good, do good deeds, never, you know what I mean, commit evil, like all the basically, you know, that's the, you know, then you can, then, you know, with this merit, etc. We should probably read it. Actually, I wanted to kind of.
Okay, let's bring it.
I've got it here, and I've got the right PDF version this time. So 1 sec.
And I don't know if we'll get to it this session, but I do have some passages that came to mind as I was watching your video, especially where you describe the working of the vow power, you know, in and through, you know, everything, basically, our experience, and how we are, you know, as we hear the Dharma. That really, you know, I think was the core of your realization, basically.
It was, including, I didn't even say this, but including the Buddha as name. Us saying the name of the Buddha is that's the Buddha.
Absolutely,
is here is
and the name of the Buddha is the Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu.
That's what I mean. When I was just using that phrase, Buddha as name, but it actually means the Buddha is the name.
It's
Buddha is Nembutsu. So so this is the digital version that I had found. The DBET PDF version. So this digital version of the original publication is attributed according to the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial Share Alike 3.0 license agreement, etc. So people can read that there.
And just for anyone who's interested, it's the Bukkyo Dindo Kyokai, or the Society for the Promotion of Buddhism.
EDK. Yeah, it's you can see the website, the web address there. So see if I can find what I'd like to. I wonder if on this version I can search the other version. That other version I found you couldn't. This one, just try see if this search will work. Can move this. Yes, okay. There we go. Scoop that there. Okay, and what do I want to find? There's a couple of things I wanted to find. No, it's not letting me. No, for some reason it doesn't like to do the
Is that
on the
the
PDF.
the search, the little magnifying glass?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Oh,
it's weird, isn't it? That it
that is
doesn't.
strange that it wouldn't let you
Yeah,
search. Did you try Control F?
might. Yeah, I did. Yeah, it might be something with the settings for my own computer, so I'll have to check that at some point. But
It does. This file has limited permissions. You may not be.
oh,
You
that
may.
could be. That could be. Yeah.
It's possible if you downloaded it and then opened it in like Adobe, you might be able to, but
But yeah, possibly. Yeah. So let's see. Let me see if I can make this bigger too. Better if people can. Yeah, easier to see on their screen.
there we go.
So see if I can find the. Do you remember? Do you know the point where it talks about? First, I just want to mention this, where it says, because this jumped out too. I'm just like last week I was talking about some things that jumped out. This is another thing that jumped out. The larger sutra for me was when it was describing how kind of how our mind stream works to experience this. So it talks about kind of through the vital energy, karma, vital energy, and the composites or something like that, or it's do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? That that ordinary beings experience, it's something along that line. Trying to find first of all, I'm trying to find the
Let me see if I can find it
find
as
the table
well.
of contents here. There. Sorry, past them. Let's see. Oh, it doesn't really break it down very much in the table of contents here. So, but
There,
part two. It's all in part two where I wanted to go. So at least get to part two, and then we can.
yeah. I found it, by the way. That was fast.
You did
Um,
what?
Page 48.
What's that? Page
Page
48.
48.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me try and get there. Oh, sorry. And so then Ananda, is that what we're talking about? Then Ananda asked the Buddha if world honored one, there was no Mount
Oh,
Sumro.
wait, is that page 48?
Oh no, maybe. Oh no, it's sorry. I know what I'm doing. Sorry about that. That's page. That's literal page. That's the not the page of the sutra page. That was the.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry, I
sorry.
know what I
Page
did. Yeah,
48
I forgot that
in,
it's. Yeah, here
in
we go.
the book, so to speak.
Apologies, anyone watching this for
There's so
my
many numbers to keep track of in these.
so many numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, I have so many names. There we go. So many notes. Get rid of a few. There we go. So many movie references. Okay, so page 48. So what paragraph here are we?
Second paragraph.
Okay, there it is. Yeah. Thus, through the natural working of karma, they undergo immeasurable sufferings in the three realms. In successive transmigrations, they are reborn into different states and forms. Their lifespans are sometimes long and sometimes short. Their transient selves, their transient selves, vital energy, and consciousness transmigrate through the natural working of karma. Although each individual is reborn alone, those bound by common karma come to be born together and take revenge upon each other. So this condition persists endlessly Until the effect of their karma is exhausted, there is no possibility of avoiding their enemies. How true it is. Floundering in, in just like every walk of life, pretty much. Floundering in samsara, they have no chance of escape or of attaining liberation. Pain they must undergo is indescribable. So true. Since this law naturally obtains since this law naturally obtains everywhere between heaven and earth, even if good or evil acts do not immediately bring about reward or retribution, they will certainly result in them sooner or later. No escape. This I call the first great evil, the first suffering, the first burning. Those afflictions are such that they are comparable to a huge fire burning people alive. Indeed. I didn't realize that's in the first evil, the first that
Yeah.
description of the three. And it's interesting too, just something that jumped out at me here. You know, it refers to the natural working of karma. You know, so you have the natural working of karma, which is our problem, and we have the natural working of the vow, which is the solution. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's a good.
just that phrase jumped for the first time, really jumped out at me. That next he says, then, you know, I always think of the natural working, but I hear that, I always think natural working of the vow. That's,
Mhm.
you know, Jinen and Honi. I always think that, but now I'm seeing the natural working of karma. The natural, you know, that's what it means when you hear phrases like the natural law of karma, the natural
Yeah.
way of karma. Yeah, it's the natural working. You know, it's just I don't know, the balance, the truth of that just rang. You know, you know, you got the natural working of karma, and Amida comes in with the natural working of the vow
Mm.
to sort that out for us.
Yeah, exactly. And that transient selves, vital energy, and consciousness, according
Yeah.
to the note, as there's a similar phrase in the Pratyutpana Samadhi Sutra, which is one of the, I think, the oldest, possibly, or one of the very first Mahayana sutras to
Mm,
promote
okay.
the meditation on the Buddha in a especially, or one of um, Amida Buddha is also named in that sutra. So that's kind of interesting, I thought.
Mm, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, that's I was reading you know, it talks about that in the BDK in the I don't know if it's the translator's notes of the three Pure Land Sutras. It talks about all the different, I don't know if it's one of the forewords or if it's in the translator's notes now, I can't remember, but it talks about how many places
Yeah,
the Amitabha is mentioned throughout all of the thousands of Buddhist
yeah,
works, like something like 13% of them. Like if you think of all the Buddhist writings, like it said something like 13%, which is a pretty big amount if you think about the volume of Buddhist works have. I think it was that. I think it was 13%. Anyway,
15%.
but,
Yeah,
but what I want to say too is the vital energy. That's a huge concept in Taoism.
mm, mm-hmm.
Very important teaching or in Taoism, which kind of makes sense in this context because that, you know, I kind of see Taoism as kind of very accurately describes how things work in samsara, if you see what I mean, but kind of
Yeah,
in a different way than, you know,
yeah,
than Buddhism does. But and the vital energy is very important in Taoism. The cultivating of that, the
right.
preserving of that, or the proper flow of that
Yeah.
vital energy. I think it's a lot. I think in Chinese, in general, East Asian medicine,
Mm,
traditional East Asian, you know,
right.
medicine. That's a huge chi, etc. All that
Yeah.
kind of is a huge part of that. But anyway, yeah, I just
Yeah.
thought that was just such a good, just that one sentence. They're transient selves, provisional selves, fake selves, facsimile selves, whatever you want to call that, composite selves, vital energy and consciousness transmigrate. It's so simple, you know,
Yeah.
so many times I try to like, when someone's asking me a question, I'm a Buddhist, and I try to explain,
Right.
like
Right.
the three marks of existence, and
Uh-huh.
no self, and and try to, okay, if there's no self, what's going to the next? Do you know what I mean? You got to think of it as a
Yeah.
mind stream, and I try to. But right there, this sums it up. So
Yeah.
simple.
It's so clear and simple, easy to communicate, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Should we also read the next paragraph, which is sort of
well,
the
I,
antidote, so to
yeah,
speak?
the antidote. That's exactly what I want to suggest doing, because, and then
Yeah.
I want to say what my every time I heard that, what my thought was
Yeah.
when I,
Great.
yeah.
Okay.
So, um, so if in the midst of this, this is the paragraph you mean, yeah. So after it
Mhm.
says those afflictions are such, that concludes with those afflictions are such that they are comparable to a huge fire burning people alive. Yeah, pretty much. So if in the midst of this one controls one's thoughts with single-mindedness, does worthy deeds with proper demeanor, commits no evil, and performs only good, then the merit and virtue acquired what that then with the virtue and sorry, then with the merit and virtue acquired, one reaches liberation and is able to escape from this world, be reborn in heavenly realms, and finally reach nirvana. This is the first great good. And what I
Mm.
thought to myself was, not a chance. Not a chance in this burning house. Not a chance in this burning, huge burning fire am I going to be able to do that. Not a
Mm.
chance in hell, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think to myself, the way I see it, and at the same simultaneously, I see in the midst of this, you know,
Mhm.
Amida has control, as Dharmakara Bodhisattva has controlled his thoughts with single-mindedness, done worthy
Yes.
deeds with proper demeanor, committed no evil, performed acts of good, and with his merit and virtue acquired,
Ah, yeah.
helps us reach liberation and enables us to escape from this world to be reborn in the Pure
Yeah,
Land
yeah, yeah.
and
That's
finally
that's
reach
a
Nirvana.
really
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
great insight, I would say. And that's exactly the merit and virtue here
Is
is, you
Amida
know,
Buddhas. Yeah,
those merit and virtue in our case, in my case.
yep. Exactly. Exactly. So that's kind of, I wanted to, that's for that thought, those kind of simultaneous thoughts, it's kind of reflective of the twofold conviction there, seeing that
Yeah,
paragraph that way. So, it's
exactly. Huh.
kind of rings of that, has that bouquet.
Yeah, and that's the point, that's what the sutra does, is it gets into our minds and it makes us it gets our minds working,
Mhm.
you know. And in the midst of that working, Amida, the vow power can begin to work on our awareness and our realization. So I mean that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's And I find myself when I go through these, just every single one, just go, yep, yep, yep. Like there's not many that I go, do you know what I mean? That either I can't say I either haven't seen it in myself or somebody else. You know what I mean? And if I could see it in
I think
somebody else, it probably, if I were not an ordinary being, I could probably see it in myself. Do you know what I mean? If I weren't a bamboo, uh, when I go
roots
through
are
these,
there, let's say the
yeah.
roots are there.
And this is after, so all of this is after this part where he goes with where they go through the five. I always lose track here too. Okay, which Buddha is talking to Maitreya now? Is this Shakyamuni? Is this Amida? Who's talking to Maitreya? And then I figured, oh yeah, it's Shakyamuni. Maitreya has shown up. He often shows up. He often shows
Yeah.
up at and becomes a, the Buddha starts talking to him, or asks the Buddha a question, or he nudges somebody else. Hey, can you ask him a question?
Yeah.
Like in the Lotus Sutra, I think, doesn't he? He goes to another bodhisattva or something, and
Uh-huh.
anyway, but this is after they've already described life in samsara. Like they've already gone into this excruciating detail about how we live, for what it's like for ordinary beings caught in samsara existence and the cycle of birth and death. And then it breaks it down in this way further. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah.
there's just nothing is
Yeah.
no stone
So,
is left unturned. Like every stone is just, yep, here you go.
right.
Okay, we're clearing this. Here you go. This is the
And
truth.
it also, I think, contrasts with the description of the Pure Land in the first
Yes.
half. You know, because we hear Dharmakara's vows, we hear the marvelous description of the Pure Land, the land of peace and tranquility, where there is no, where Shakyamuni says that even the word for evil isn't,
Isn't there?
there's
Yeah. Yeah.
word for evil there. And then
Which you
you
have to get
know,
the meaning of, because obviously these beings remember all their past lives. And so,
right,
do you know what I mean? So you have to
you
get
know,
the meaning of what that's conveying. Yeah. It's trying to convey in a provisional way what to us, so we can get, like, this
exactly.
is seriously a pure place. Like, but there was just something else there. Oh yeah. So
Mm,
the contrast between the two. Oh yeah, where every was talking about basically everything preaches the Dharma in the Pure
yeah,
Land, whereas
the
everything in samsara further entangles you in. Everything in samsara further entangles you in this horrid, suffering, burning, mess, and
right,
keeps you entangled in it like a web. The web of it, and every single thing. Whereas and in Pure Land, everything preaches the Dharma. Everything basically gives you the Dharma. Everything, the music, the tinkling of the jeweled trees when the
yeah,
breeze blows through, the birds, the various birds and other these creatures that are just a manifestation of
mm,
Amitabha's mind. Um, you know, are just singing, and just it's the Dharma itself. You've got,
mm,
what are those? The flying, um, the beautiful, what are they called? Um,
the Kalavinka, is it a
I
bird?
can't remember. And they just sing the Dharma.
Yeah,
There's just all kinds of these things. Every single thing about it, like the lotuses make, the colors, everything is the Dharma, basically. Everything is the truth. Everything is the Dharma, and just
yeah,
naturally liberates beings. Whereas
yeah,
just samsaric existence naturally entangles us.
yeah.
You know,
And,
the
and
natural
I think
working of
uh, I think it's Tonlon who says even the name of the Pure Land performs the Buddha's working.
yeah. Wow,
So
yeah.
even us even us, we can't obviously, unless we reach some, state, unless we practice, the meditation practices to visualize the Pure Land, we can't see the Pure Land, but the very name of the Pure Land performs the working of the Buddha, according to Tonlon, which I always thought was really amazing,
Yeah, mind blowing, definitely. The name is Buddha. When you say the name,
Yeah,
it's actually the Buddha. So
exactly. Yeah,
somehow
and
the Buddha is making itself
right.
here, when you say the name. Just
Yeah,
someone just hearing, if someone overhears you saying the name, I think about this with my cat. You know,
mm,
I'm glad my cat has heard so many Nembutsus and heard me talking about Amida and heard me, do you know what I mean? Talking about
yeah,
Pure Land and listening to Buddhists sitting there on my lap, hearing all this. Because
yeah,
hearing the name is the Buddha. So the Buddha is
right.
just even through that is teaching this creature is, do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think too, like the name, the Pure Land, and there are different names, like land of peace and tranquility, land of utmost bliss, utmost happiness, land of, and on and on. But those names of the Pure Land are actually kind of informing us what nirvana is like, you know,
Yes.
in
Yes.
what nirvana is in a way that we can relate
Yes.
to in a positive rather than in a negative sense. Not negative in the sense of bad, but negative in the sense usually, for example, in the wisdom sutras, like the Prajna Paramita sutras, are very uh, concerned with negating all
Yeah.
all possible perceptual ideas or opinions of what nirvana is, right? But in the Pure Land sutras, we have the flip side of that, which is also something that I think what's it called? The school that Vasubandhu was, part of the consciousness only, school,
Cool.
or the
Yeah.
yeah. The flip side of the negative description is the positive description. You become aware that not only positive language, but also, or not only negative language, but also positive language, the birds, the trees, the
Yes.
jewels,
Yes.
also can be an expression of the highest truth of nirvana, which is also Tathagata. They're synonymous, right? And what is it? In Nirvana, in Mahayana, in Buddhism, we have nirvana is purity, uh, self, bliss, and eternal. Those four characteristics, those four sort of qualities of what nirvana is, and those are expressed in the Pure Land, the
Yeah.
description and the name of Pure Land. So I think that's probably, or that's possibly, what Tonlon meant when he said even the name of that land performs the Buddha's working. Pretty amazing
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. It
Anyway,
is.
it's gone for a while, but
Yeah, but there was just something else I wanted to pick up on the thread of what you were saying there, but I didn't want to interrupt. Was when Oh, when you mentioned about the five things,
Mm,
the
yeah,
self aspect of that is meant in terms of Buddha nature, the teachings of
right.
Buddha nature.
No,
It's meant
yeah,
in not provisional self. This is, and not even true self, really. It's more just the Buddha nature, the
exactly.
Dharmakaya, Sunyata, and then you have in the sense of that and the three, so there's Dharmakaya, the
Mm,
Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Um,
I actually
Expressions
read
or
a.
manifestations of Buddha nature, and all of that.
I
Buddha seed,
wonder, that's an important
the
point.
Tathagata.
It's not it's not self in the sense of
Yeah,
a not, right, or a not
yeah,
on it.
right,
Um,
exactly. It's
I read a I think maybe it was in the glossary to the Jodo Shinshu Satan, the Jodo Shinshu scriptures, the Japanese version. But self actually means freedom, the ability
yeah.
to, like when we say, when Amida is praised as the one freely working, the one who works unrestrictedly, that's the freedom that a Buddha has to benefit and to work for others in an unrestricted way is
Mm.
actually what the self there means.
Okay, yeah. Which,
So
well, that fits
it,
what we were just
I
talking
read
about. Yeah,
that, that's just one
that makes
explanation
sense.
that I read. So, but of course, that is also Buddha nature, as you said.
But yeah, I was going to say that fits exactly with and how many places where contrasting that with the samsaric existence, how many times it says we cannot act as we wish, we cannot save beings as we wish,
Yes,
we cannot
Shinran said in
basically
Honi.
we can't do anything as we wish.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah,
contrasting, and that whereas it's
yeah,
when when Buddha nature is realized, Buddhahood is realized,
yeah,
everything is, you can do, everything you wish, but you don't even have a wish. There's no want there. It's just a natural ultimate compassion, natural ultimate wisdom. So you just naturally
yeah,
can
yeah.
and do all those things that
Right.
in the samsaric
And if,
existence we wish we could.
exactly, if you think about it, the fetters, the kleshas, right? What is extinguished in nirvana? Nirvana means, the extinguishing, right? Or metsudo in Japanese or in Chinese. But well, the Japanese reading of the Chinese characters anyway. But what is extinguished in nirvana? It's the kleshas, the defilements, the our bonno, right? And so what uh what is left is freedom. You're free. A Buddha is free.
Yeah.
There's no more. The kleshas literally means fetters, and once those fetters are broken, you are free.
Yeah,
How amazing! Yeah.
it
So
is.
that's the goal. That's the
Yeah.
goal, of course.
And I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's really hard for us ordinary beings to even be able to get our head rounds or properly
Oh yeah,
discuss these ideas of, you know what I mean? Of,
yeah,
hence we're Jodashinshu Buddhists rather than
exactly. Yeah.
other kinds of Buddhists.
Say the Nimbutsu and be saved by Amida's.
Um, Something else I want to pick up on that we were talking about earlier, and that I mentioned earlier was,
Yeah. You
um,
want to pause sharing
oh
so
yeah,
we
yeah.
can.
I think we're, unless there was something else. Is there anything else you wanted to note? I mean,
Not for now with the larger sutra.
okay,
Maybe with
all right,
any more discussion
all right.
next time.
So I'll stop sharing, and So when I mentioned about how many times Amitabha is, Amida or Amitayus or the
Mm,
various names of the name um, of the ultimate Buddha is throughout Buddhist sutras and writings, and
yeah.
it's in every school of Buddhism. I
Yeah.
recently watched a lecture. Was it yesterday morning? It was yesterday or the day before about. I think it was yesterday, but it was about. It was on the. It was either on the BCA Education channel on YouTube or one of those,
Mhm.
one of the BCA or the Buddhist Churches of America. Can't remember which. There are quite a few different BCA related channels. It was just brief. It was like an 18-minute brief kind of lecture that this associate professor, can't remember what university he was with, gave on, you know, uh, Jodo. Well, it wasn't just Jodo Shinshu, but just the 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 teaching and how, you know, um, and basically one of the things he pointed out was, I can't remember what the title of the lecture was either. Sorry, but what struck me was how much Amida Buddha is incorporated in one way or another into every tradition, especially Mahayana. But you
Yeah.
could look at it in Hinayana even, that, I thought about it. There's things that in Theravada that you can easily, do you know what I mean, see, you know, anyway. But um and that this is he went through all the different, very briefly went through the different
Yeah.
traditions, how they view
It's fascinating,
Amida.
isn't it?
Yeah, it
It's
is. It's so cool, and how you you know I understand it from a Jodo Shinju perspective, but it makes so much sense when if you have that perspective, to see their perspective. It's not confusing. Before I was really immersed in the Jodo Shinju teaching, I was like,
mm,
wait a minute, I don't get this. We're we're supposed to rely on ourselves, but there's also Buddhism. Bodhisattva's working. For a lot of years, I kind of had that
mm.
confusion, but now it just makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
and you start
actually
to
a
see
great,
how other power, self power,
yeah.
starts to blur in the traditions. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Too. So,
Especially Zen, I think, too. Zen sometimes emphasizes
oh, big time. Yeah.
sort of you have to throw away yourself and rely and sort of, have that direct experience of the Dharma, Satori. And so yeah, there's what Kobai Sensei calls Tariki Poi, or other power like religions. You could, or philosophies. But that's actually a great. I like that because if unless you have some other topic for our next session, I'd like to go back to the video that you made and
Yeah.
talk about that, the working in and through um, our lives in our minds of course our lives are our
Hmm.
minds of the wisdom of
Other power.
light, of
Yeah.
Mika's power, of the working of the vow, because there's a couple passages from the collected works of Shinron, so we could bring in a little bit of the seven Pure Land Masters here, that I think would be really interesting and it kind of ties into your realization. So if
Yeah.
you have no other thing you would like to do for a topic, maybe we could discuss that and maybe
Yeah.
go into
Sure.
it a bit deeper
Okay.
next time,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think
Definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
that's exciting. I'd love to do that. And again, just to mention for anybody watching this, we're referring to episode 10 of Reflecting deeply series. I wish, the implications they're reflecting deeply is other power enabled deep reflection. Other,
Not
and
Shinjitsu.
maybe speculations and calculations, are mixed in there. But, the deep reflection part definitely is Amida's light enabled, reflection.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
it was I mean, today was a great discussion as well, and I was really blown away by that video. I'm gonna watch it again before our next our next
Oh,
meeting.
excellent.
It's such a it's so important that the words, the teaching is not just words on a page, but that it becomes real in our lives and in our experience. And then when that happens, you sort of come to realize the meaning of the Shinjitsu, the
Yes.
true and real, you know. And so I think it's just really great, and it's such an important aspect of Buddhism in general, and especially Jodo Shinshu. So
I always loved
good.
that term, Shinjitsu. I always loved, but I never really understood it till just now, like
Oh, really?
until
Yeah.
recently. Yeah, like now I see what it's, now
Yeah.
I actually see what it's
Right, right.
saying.
Yeah.
When you break
Because you
down the
have,
words, you're like, well,
what
okay,
is this?
you know,
Yeah.
with this nuance, that's another nuance of, but now
Yeah.
I actually see what it,
Rely on
I
the
get the
meaning,
meaning. I get the
not
meaning now, not the
you get the
words. I definitely get the meaning now, loud
the moon.
and clear. The channel Mita's tuning is
Uh,
definitely getting
uh,
clearer and clearer, clearing up my reception.
well, and for me, it was a great opportunity to I want to say thank you for sharing that and posting it, because uh like I said, I was very inspired, and it was really kind of a like I got to share in your realization. So that was
Oh,
cool.
thank you. That's so really good to hear. It's just wow. I'm so glad to. I'm really
I
glad to
can't, there's nothing
hear
else to
that.
say other than Namo Amida Butsu.
Yeah, though that's how I felt. Well, obviously, I ended it with, at least a couple minute long Nembutsu saying. So yeah, so great. Well, maybe I'll post this one out of order as well. Maybe I'll just
Oh,
say, you know,
oh.
and so it's connected. It's closer in time and then
Mm.
then next week do the same. We'll just post these out of order of
As a
the
special,
as a
yeah.
special special
Special.
Shinjin edition. So, something special. There's
Yeah.
something special about Shinjin. Something special edition.
I love it.
We need to
Uh,
talk about Shinjin. Anyway, right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much once again. I think we've reached that
yeah. All
point.
right. Yeah, let's I should be good for
Yeah.
next
Conver-
Sunday, same time.
Dharma dialogues will go on as long as they have to. I think we've reached
Yes. One of the rules of
the rules
Shaku
of
Brothers.
Shaku Brothers. Yeah.
And by the way, next weekend, I think I should also be fine for Saturday, if that works for you. I mean, Sunday is usually fine as well, but this Saturday evening I should be free. So if you want to meet Saturday morning, that would be fine too.
I'll see what's
It
going on. We're meant to do a bunch of things because it's a bank holiday weekend.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're going
Yeah.
to be doing some things with family
Gotcha.
and stuff. Um, but I'm not sure which day and what the
Yeah,
schedule is.
let me
So
know which works better, because I can
whether it's
probably
Sunday or
this
Saturday.
Saturday or
But
Sunday,
is
either one.
Saturday better this weekend? Is that what you're saying? Saturday is better this coming weekend than
No,
Sunday,
either is fine.
or
If
both?
it's Saturday,
Okay.
I might be able to meet a little earlier, possibly.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but
Okay, but if it's
yeah,
Sunday, definitely
otherwise,
around 11 o'clock time. Yeah. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Shall we do some Nembutsu to take
yes, absolutely. It's the main event. All
the
right, Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu.
Nembutsu,
Namo Amida Butsu.
Nembutsu,
Namo Amida Butsu.
Nembutsu,
Namanda, 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 Namanda,
Nam-
Namanda. All right. Well, I will see you next week, Gankai, and let's continue the discussion on
Okay.
the work coming through of the vow power. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. Bye now.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.